Hey guys, Bryan Rogala here. This is the 101. Today we're talking about ski helmets and goggles. Now, why are we talking about helmets and goggles together? Well, chances are if you're buying a helmet, you're probably going to buy a pair of goggles at the same time. And these days, a lot of manufacturers are making helmets and goggles that integrate and work together. First up, let's talk helmets. Now, it used to be a lot of people didn't wear helmets when they went skiing. That is no longer the case, and there's absolutely no reason not to wear one when you go skiing. Helmets have come a long way and they're more comfortable and safer than ever. So what should you look for when you go to buy a helmet? There are a lot of different brands out there, but the most important thing about helmets is to buy one that fits your head properly. And that means going into a store and trying one on if at all possible. It helps if you can go in with an idea of your size, which means measuring your head and checking out the manufacturer's size chart. So the best way to get a good measurement is to use a soft tape measure like a tailor has, but if you don't have one, you can also just use a piece of string. So super simple, take a piece of string, wrap it around your head, get a good measurement there. Okay. Then when you have that, take your regular tape measure, see where that comes to, which for me is about 22.5 inches. That's about 57 centimeters or so, which is usually a size medium for most manufacturers. So that's how you can get a good baseline if you're ordering a helmet online. But different brands are going to fit different shaped heads better. So it's really good to go into a store and try them out if you can. I've worn helmets from Smith, Giro, POC, and some other brands, all in the same size medium, and they all kind of fit a little bit differently. Basically, you want the helmet to sit all the way down on your head and not have very much wiggle room without being too tight, because if it's too tight, that's going to give you a headache. You also want to look for a ski helmet that has some kind of micro adjuster. So most helmets these days have some sort of an adjustment system built in, and that gives them a wider range and helps you really dial in the fit for your head. Once you find one that fits properly, here's some other features you should look for. First, vents. Different venting options can help you regulate temperature, and they help with goggle fogging, which can really ruin your day. Next, MIPS. MIPS is an acronym for Multi-Directional Impact Protection System. It basically mimics the brain's own protective structure and reduces rotational forces caused by angled impacts to the head. Now, the moral of the story is it just offers more protection than a helmet without it, so there's no reason not to get a helmet with MIPS. Another feature is a goggle lock. There's some different types, but I prefer one that actually locks your goggle strap into place, keeps your goggles on your helmet a little better. Okay, so that's what you should look for in a helmet. I'm a big fan of Smith and Giro helmets. They all have a slightly different fit, so again, it's worth trying them on, but those are the brands that I've found work best for me and have the features I'm looking for. This one right here is called the Smith Quantum. It's a really high-end helmet. It's about 300 bucks. This is a women's Smith Vantage. It's also pretty expensive at $260, but they've got a ton of features built into them. I also think safety gear is something you shouldn't skimp on, even if you are just getting into skiing. With the Quantum and the Vantage, you get two different sets of vents here, which is really nice to have. You get a goggle lock on the back, super solid construction, MIPS built in, and they have an antibacterial liner, which is also really nice. It also has their BOA fit system, which you can see right here, to help you really dial in that fit. Now this is the Giro Jackson helmet and then the women's Terra helmet. They're slightly less expensive at 160 bucks, but they also are not quite as feature packed. You don't get vents that you can open and close. These helmets have a passive venting system, but you still get MIPS with these, and you get their Inform to Fit system, which lets you dial in that fit. Okay, now for goggles. Here are a few main things you want to look for in a pair of goggles. First, a wide field of view. The bigger the better, in my opinion, because then you're going to get more peripheral vision and be able to see stuff on either side of you. Next, high quality lenses. Smith and Giro both make really high quality lenses, and they offer a ton of different tint options for various lighting conditions that you're going to run into on the mountain. So you have stuff for really sunny days or cloudy days. Which leads me to my next point. Whatever you do, make sure you buy a pair of goggles that lets you swap out the lenses. They get scratched pretty easily, so it's nice to be able to buy a replacement lens without replacing the entire goggle. And you get multiple options depending upon what the weather's doing that day. Another important consideration is how easy it is to swap the lenses. Because if it's easier to swap them, you're more likely to do it and have a better experience on the mountain. This is Smith's new IOMag XL, and it uses a little magnet to swap the lens. It's that simple. You just pop it right off, you can pop it right back on, really easy. Giro has one too. It's called their Contact, which retails for about $260 as opposed to $150. These are also interchangeable lenses. However, they kind of snap into place. Still pretty easy to change, but certainly not as easy as the contact line or as the IO mag. So the big point about interchangeable lenses is that if these get scratched, you can just buy a new lens instead of an entire new pair of goggles. Okay, now one other point about goggles. You want to make sure you hang on to the protective sleeve they came in and always put your goggles back in there at the end of the day. Now, any goggle is going to work with any helmet, so don't stress too much about that. But if you are buying a Giro helmet or a Smith helmet, I recommend buying a goggle from that manufacturer. Manufacturers are now designing their helmets and goggles to work together seamlessly. What does that mean? It means there's going to be zero gap between the helmet and goggles, and there's vents here on the top of the goggle and a vent here on the helmet that's going to work together to make sure that your goggles don't fog up on you as easily. It's also going to help you regulate temperature a little better, and you're just going to look cooler without that gap right there. So my advice is to buy a helmet first based on fit and the features that you want based on that criteria I mentioned before, and then buy a set of goggles from the same manufacturer so you get the most out of the whole system. It's worth spending a little bit more on these items, so buy the best you can afford and have fun out there.